Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Is Your Job Site INSafe Safe? Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. We've taken a screenshot of an example of the attendee interface. You should see something that looks like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right corner. You're listening in using your computer speaker system by default. If you'd prefer to join over the telephone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You're going to have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the questions pane of your control panel. You can send your questions in at any time during the presentation. We'll collect these and address them during the Q&A at the end of today's presentation. At the end of today's presentation, you can also raise your hand for the opportunity to ask an audio question. The session organizer will announce your name and let you know that you have been unmuted to ask your question. I would now like to introduce our session moderator, Carly Greenberg.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm Carly Greenberg from MGH, the Underground Safety Alliance Marketing Agency of record. You'll receive a survey about all of today's webinars tomorrow, and we would appreciate if you would complete that and provide your feedback. We will also share an email in the coming weeks that give you access to the recordings of all the presentations today. As Nikki mentioned, please submit questions using the questions panel on your screen. It is my pleasure to introduce the speakers for this session, Brian Faze and George Villalta from INSafe. Jorge Villalta is an INSafe Safety consultant with the Indiana Department of Labor's INSafe division. He has nearly 2 decades of experience in the occupational safety industry, starting his career as a human resources safety manager for auto manufacturing before joining INSafe. Prior to his current role, Jorge worked for the Indiana Occupational Safety and Health Administration, IOSHA, in enforcement for a decade. Jorge holds a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership and supervision and an associate's degree in food service supervision from Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis. Brian Faze is an INSafe Safety consultant with the Indiana Department of Labor's INSafe division and has over 40 years of experience in the construction and safety fields. Prior to serving as a safety consultant with INSafe, Brian served as a construction area supervisor and as a compliance officer for the Indiana Occupational Safety and Health Administration's IOSHA Construction Safety Compliance Division. It's my pleasure to introduce, please join me in welcoming Brian Faze and Jorge Villalta from INSafe.
Okay, well, thanks, Carly. Is your job site INSafe safe? Some of our objectives, what we want to cover today is what is INSafe and how to request our services, what to expect during a consultation visit, and what are the requirements after INSafe would visit your job site. We also want to cover some statistics and that hopefully will explain why safety is important. Who are we? Well, INSafe is a division of the Indiana Department of Labor, and we are the consultation side of the Indiana Occupational Safety and Health Administration. We offer training, we are the consultation, training, and educational program side of OSHA enforcement. Most people did not know or do not know that OSHA has a consultation side. In the state of Indiana, that consultation program is run through the Indiana Department of Labor. In the state of Kentucky, that program is also run through the Kentucky Labor Cabinet. The consultation program is in all 50 states. Some of those states, the OSHA consultation program is run through maybe the Workers' Comp Division, or some of those states run the OSHA consultation program through some various universities. But most of them are run through the Department of Labor in those specific states. So what do? Well, we help Hoosier businesses in meeting current OSHA standards, hopefully to eliminate any hazardous conditions on your job site. We help employers develop comprehensive safety and health management systems so that your workers stay safe. And that's the bottom line, to protect your most precious resources, which are your employees. The OSHA Act was enacted back in 1970, was signed into law in 1970. OSHA regulations started being enforced in 1971. The consultation program, OSHA started the consultation program back in 1975, so that we could help employers so that, you know, they would know a little bit about what the OSHA regulations are and how to abide by those regulations just before OSHA showed up. The differences, OSHA enforcement, the differences between the consultation program and the enforcement division is that we cannot just show up on a job site. Our services are provided at the request from an employer, meaning that the employer has to request our services before we can do anything. So how do we help employers? Well, if they request an on-site consultation, we would go to that job site and we would conduct a hazard audit of that job site. Look at different machinery, different work tasks, different work processes to see if there are any hazards associated with those processes, or if something maybe doesn't meet an OSHA regulation. We also conduct training. I've had several employers request just training, and it may be on trenching, it may be on silica, it may be cranes, it may be electrical. We also perform those services. We participate in seminars such as this, and we also offer other education materials, programs, publications. Like right now, we are offering several publications that OSHA has put out related to the COVID-19, which is had all of us in the year 2020. You know, that's taken a lot of our time. But we have several OSHA publications and best work practices and best practices to deal with those situations too. Our target, as I said, it's Hoosier employers and employees. We offer services to both general industry manufacturing and construction employers, construction contractors. The program was set up to help small employers. So, you know, we will help any employer, but we like to cater to employers that have less than 250 employees on the site or less than 500 employees company-wide. We also want to cater to high hazard industry, and all of construction is considered a high hazard industry due to the hazards, the serious hazards that are associated with construction work. So as I said, the consultation has to be initiated at the request from the employer. So you can request a consultation via online at the Indiana Department of Labor INSafe website. You can request one by email, or you can call the INSafe division and tell them that you would like a consultation, and they would send you a form that you could fill out, send back in, or you could email back in. But here is the link to the Indiana Department of Labor, the INSafe division, to request a consultation. I have this also at the end of the presentation, but just keep in mind, you can go to any search engine, go to the Indiana Department of Labor. On the left-hand side of that page, you can click on INSafe, and then there's another link that says request a consultation. A lot of people, I get the question asked a lot of time, you mean we're going to call OSHA and we're going to invite them to our job site, or we're going to invite them to our facility? Just remember, we are not OSHA enforcement. All conversations that we have with you as an employer, any correspondence, any materials that we give you or that you give us, is kept confidential. INSafe consultations are not public record. If we perform a consultation at your job site, it's not public record. If you were ever inspected by OSHA enforcement, you know, you can go on OSHA's website, type in a company name, and they can see when the inspection was, what the company was cited for, what the penalties were, or anything like that. None of that is public record on our consultation visits. We don't share any of that information with OSHA enforcement. OSHA enforcement doesn't have a right to get a copy of anything, our reports or anything that we do with an employer. So if you would request a consultation, what happens is that will be assigned to an INSafe consultant, and we have consultants that are really good in certain areas and disciplines. Jorge and I both cover construction because of our construction backgrounds. But anyway, once you request a consultation, that consultation will be assigned to a consultant. That consultant will contact you to confirm your request and try to find out what it is exactly you want, whether it's a full scope consultation, meaning that, you know, we would come to your job site, do a hazard audit if that's what you request of the entire job site. You may just want to, maybe not a full scope consultation, but what's considered a limited scope. Maybe to just let us look at your trenching operations, where that's the only thing we would review at that job site. Now, while we're at that job site, if we saw some other serious hazard that could injure employees, we would address that too to make sure it gets corrected. All consultations, we do review your written safety and health programs. If you don't have one, we'll help you develop one. We have a lot of materials, example programs that would meet those OSHA standards requirements to have some of those written programs. And we also review your injury and illness records. One of the reasons we do that, we want to see, what your injuries and illnesses are, if there's any trending issues that we can help you with. But one of the other reasons we do that is because we compare your injury and illness rates, your total recordable rate, and your DART rate, which is your days away from work or your restricted activity. And we compare your rates to what the national average is for your particular NAICS code. I've had several consultations where it shows that employer's rates are maybe double what the national rate is, and then it really opens the eyes of an employer to say, yeah, we realize now we have to do things a little bit better. But we would meet with the person in charge, and that may be your superintendent, it may be the company president, whoever you tell us that's who you want us to meet with. And once we get on site, we would conduct an opening conference, get a little bit more information about the company, and explain, what we're going to do that day. As I mentioned earlier, we do review safety and health programs. Your consultation request may be not to conduct an audit, but that you just need help in development of written safety and health program, or some other written program that OSHA requires. As I mentioned, we can perform a hazard assessment just of a particular operation or of the entire job site. And once we do that, then we would conduct a closing conference. One thing important to remember, if you are a subcontractor on a job and you do request a INSafe consultation, you would have to get permission from the general contractor at that site for us to perform your consultation, because you are a subcontractor. After we perform that hazard assessment, do a walkthrough of the job site, we would tell you and we would discuss the items that we found, any serious hazards that your employees could be exposed to. The main thing is to get those hazards corrected. So we would discuss with you any correction dates. Typically, INSafe looks at around 30 days. I have worked with employers where some of those hazards have taken as long as six months to correct. Jorge, you've been doing a lot of construction consultations, as I do both construction and manufacturing. You want to elaborate on those correction dates, or maybe some things that you've had to work with employers on a longer basis?
Yes, I had some instances as sometimes the employer has forklift operator that doesn't have the certification. So that's one of the issues sometimes we run into, or machinery that needs to be retrofit, like backup alarm doesn't work, the glass in front of the shield that you have in front of your cabin, you know, is broken or something. So, you know, stuff like that. I think that's what mainly.
Okay, so it might be a case where, you know, we say, hey, let's start off. We think we can get that corrected in 30 days, but if they would have to order a part, that part is on back order. It may be that we would have to extend that out then, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes even a month and a half or so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, after we set those correction dates, you know, we will tell you that we'll follow up with you to see how you're coming along with correction. And one of the main things I always tell employers at a consultation is use us as a resource. I know myself, as well as Jorge and other safety and health consultants, they get emails, they receive emails and phone calls every day from employers on maybe it's just something they heard that OSHA's doing, or it's an interpretation of what that OSHA standard says. Or we also receive phone calls and emails from employees wanting to know maybe what a regulation says. But every day, and we'll follow up with those phone calls and they'll tell you what those OSHA interpretations are, and any other way that we can provide technical assistance. So after the consultation is completed, as the employer, the consultant will create a written report. In that report, it will have the items that we noted that are hazards, and you should receive that report within 15 days after we close that have a closing conference for that consultation. Included in that report is what's called a list of hazards, and that list of hazards should be posted on the job site so that employees of your company can see what the consultation side of OSHA noted at the job site. You are required to provide a written documentation of the correction of hazards. You know, that's in your report. There's a section you can fill out and send in, or you can do it online. Once again, if you just list the hazard and state how you corrected it. But we take your word for it. We don't, you know, if you tell us that you corrected a hazard, we take your word for it. It's not like OSHA enforcement where you may have to send in a receipt or anything like that because you requested us to come out. A lot of people think, well, once again, you know, I'm not going to call OSHA. I'm not going to call OSHA. We're the consultation side. We don't issue penalties. We do not issue citations or penalties. If we find a hazard, you are required to correct it, but there's no penalties involved. And as I already mentioned, if we come up and say, hey, we think this hazard should be corrected within 30 days, but something comes up where it can't be, your consultant will work with you to get an extension on that date. Like Jorge and I mentioned, that sometimes that request can take up, or an extension can be another 30 days, possibly 60 days. The thing about it though, any hazards that we identify during an on-site visit have to be corrected. And if you fail to correct that hazard, even after some extensions, which may be granted, those hazards are referred to OSHA enforcement. So, and that's only happened a couple times that I know of since I've been with the Indiana Department of Labor, because you did request us to come out. You're serious about safety and health. You want to find the hazards. You want to get them corrected. As I mentioned earlier, some of the other services that we offer, you know, we do training and education. We have industrial hygienists who can do specific air sampling and analysis, noise sampling. They're the chemical people, you know, industrial hygienists, but they can do all that and it's all free. So that's the best thing about The OSHA Consultation program doesn't cost you a dime. It's all free. All you have to do is put in a request. We come visit the job site, identify hazards, you correct them. It makes your job site safe and healthy.
Brian, can I add about the safety rating programs?
Yeah, sure.
We do have those in Spanish as well. So, and I believe that's one of the advantage of me that I'm bilingual, that I know the Hispanics, how they work. I've been around them, and I know from anyone from Mexico to Central America to South America, so I can relate the Spanish language to them. It is very important for those Hispanics or whoever, even Chinese, to have their program in their language so they can understand. And the employers should be able to communicate that information with them, because some of them can't even read or write, in this case, Spanish. And that could be a problem, a big problem by itself. Management, supervisors have to communicate well enough with employees so they can understand basically how to find the hazards, help the employees, their employees, so they won't be exposed to any hazards. So that's something that I also I do as well, help the companies in that regard. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's important, Jorge. I mean, a lot of these regulations state that you have to train your employees or instruct them on the hazards, and it has to be in a language that they can understand. And I know I've done consultations in the past, as you have, Jorge, where their programs are all in English, and they may have an interpreter there that he's never seen the programs or the safety rules or policies. So, but yeah, great. And I know you spent a lot of time developing those programs in Spanish for employers that have a Hispanic workforce. So, some of the benefits of our program, I mean, the bottom line is it keeps employees safe. It protects them from being exposed to hazardous conditions. Your employees are your most precious resource. You can reduce workers' compensation costs. If you have a good, effective safety and health management system and you reduce hazards, you can increase profit margin. Employee morale is real big. You can reduce employee turnover and you eliminate any potential OSHA fines. Did you want to talk about employee morale just a little bit, Jorge?
Yes. Managers, supervisors, it's just not having an open door policy. You have to give the opportunity to employees to voice their opinions, safety concerns, also share ideas. What's better to do their work? What kind of tool will be best to use so they can do their work, their job, improve procedures. I believe that you should get the best experienced employee involved so you can develop this program better. So you want, so you have somebody that knows the trade by itself, and also can recognize the hazards and be there for you guys. Also, reducing employee turnover. That's always been an issue for any company. I believe showing workers that you care about for the future of the company, willing to invest on them, that will increase the chances of keeping those employees. What I mean there is getting them trained, getting them certified, not just taking a course online or something, a 10-hour class, because sometimes you don't even know if that's going to be sufficient. So I believe that's something that you have to focus all on that also. We were going to talk about eliminating the potential on OSHA fines.
Yeah, and coming up are some monetary dollar amounts that kind of can show that.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, I mean, as far as employee morale, you know, if you practice safety, it shows your employees that you care. You know, some statistics related to safety and deaths. You know, every day, 14 people in America go to work and don't come home to their family due to a workplace fatality. Now, as safety professionals, that number is totally unacceptable. One is too many. When you kiss your wife, when you kiss your husband, you kiss your kids goodbye in the morning to go to work to provide for them, you should come home. Unfortunately, every day in America, 14 people don't because they're killed at work. In 2018, there were 5,250 workplace fatalities. 2019 numbers will be coming up shortly, and I don't know where they're at, but you know, in 2018 there were 5,250 workplace fatalities, and there's nearly 3 million workplace injuries and illnesses every year, and over 50% of those involved days away from work or lost time. You know, some people complain about OSHA. Has OSHA done better? You know, since the OSHA Act was enacted in 1970, there were 14,000 fatalities a year. Every day, 38 people were killed on the job. And you consider, has OSHA done some good? Most certainly, because the labor force is probably nearly 2.5 to 3 times the number what it was in 1970. So the OSHA regulations have done some good. This is just a slide that it's a national slide. The state of Indiana really mirrors this. It's the top 10 most frequently cited serious violations in construction. As you can see on this slide, most of them deal with fall protection, and that's why in the state of Indiana, at least, fall protection is a local emphasis program. You can see some others there deal with eye and face protection, which is PPE, head protection, PPE. And then that last one down there, general safety and health provisions, where it says inspections by a competent person, because what the OSHA regulation states is that you should have a competent person on your job site who inspects that job site on a regular and frequent basis to try to find hazards. And if you train your employees to recognize those hazards, you know, they're going to get corrected. What I did here, I just pulled the violations that were the top 10 violations, 10 to 12 violations that were related to NAICS Code 2371. So, and that's utility system construction. So as you can see here, it looks like the number one was excavation, OSHA excavation requirements and protective systems, safety education and training, or the improper use or lack of PPE, your general safety and health provisions where it was maybe not having a written program or training your people. Then you go on down the line, it looks fall protection, electrical, rigging and material handling, using some maybe bad slings. So some of the crane regulations and some of the regulations in power transmission distribution. But the number two cited hazards related to utility system construction were in the excavation standards. And Jorge, some of the things that you've seen related to excavations and why those are?
Yes, I believe there's a misconception about trenching excavation. You have the type of soil classification. When you use caving protection, you know, you think about benching, sloping. When it happens also when you're doing repairs, replacement of water piping. The water pipe can zip in water in can produce or make a bulge and break up, and the trench wall can just collapse. The trench caving can cause, wall cracks, eruption of dirt. Working on those conditions are unsafe. Also, if you're working around the vehicular road traffic, heavy machinery, that's a lot of vibration. That's going to also put a toll onto your trench or your excavation. All those can be previously disturbed soil because you can be considered that way. You can find also layers of sand, clay, and all this could be also, well, you're going to have to consider that or classify that as a type C soil that should be sloped at least. Or whenever you use a trench box or shoring that is intended to support intended load. In an event of a cave-in, you must follow recommendations, manufacturer recommendations on setting up that trench box, or also use the tabulated data of that trench box as well. So you get that trench box that is required for that type of excavation or trench itself. Okay. Go ahead, Brian.
A lot of people, we talked about eliminating potential OSHA fines, and in 2018, OSHA issued nearly $6.9 million in penalties or fines related to that next code 237, utility system contractors. They issued nearly $48 million in penalties to specialty trade contractors, which are classified in next code 238. That might be, a specialty trade contractor may be a specific plumbing contractor or a specific mechanical contractor or electrical contractor. And we spoke about, utility system construction, and there's a lot of hazards and a lot of penalties and regulations which are violated, which are associated for trenching and excavation work. And there were nearly $8 million in penalties and fines levied to contractors related to trenching and excavation standards. So a lot of penalties are being issued out there. So, it's a lot better for you to request the consultation side to come out, and if there's an issue out there, to get that corrected before OSHA enforcement would show up. And the other thing regarding trenching and excavation, it's a national emphasis program, meaning that anybody can see an open excavation trench, or any compliance officer, and they can stop and inspect that excavation. There doesn't have to be, a hazard associated with it. They can just stop and do it. So, accidents cost money. I've always said, if you have an accident, OSHA is really the least of your worries. You're going to have direct costs and indirect costs, and the studies have shown that your indirect costs are probably 2.5 to 5 times what your direct costs are. Your direct costs are your medical costs, your indemnity payments, and your indirect costs are things like legal fees or OSHA fines, schedule delays, fines for not meeting your schedule, higher insurance premiums. All of those things are indirect costs, and so when people say, well, safety is just too expensive, no, it's not. Safety pays. It's not an expense. Some of you have maybe seen this slide before, but it just says that all your indirect costs, all of those costs, associated fines or legal fees, loss of scheduling time, human tragedy, all of those unknown costs can sink the ship. Your direct cost is just the tip of the iceberg. So, that human tragedy is, as I mentioned, when you kiss your wife, your husband, your kids goodbye in the morning, they they expect you to come home, and that's a tragedy that they live with the rest of their lives. Did you want to comment on that, Jorge, at all?
Yes. Well, that can take a toll on the employees. Mental health as a result of a fatality, for example. Workers get depressed, and it takes a long time for them to overcome a loss of a friend that been working with them for a long time. And then you start getting those employees not showing up to work, so that becomes a problem. The turnover also becomes a problem, and that's basically what happens. Even as a compliance officer myself, I saw so many that it was hard for them to also to communicate with you at the time whenever myself happened. We were doing an inspection. Also, the reputation to the company. The company can lose projects, contracts, even when their bid is the cheapest. Can become a nightmare for the company. Not following safety guidelines, disregard for safety, that's unacceptable. You have to have the proper training for your employees all the time.
Yeah, and in today's environment, like as you mentioned, sometimes owners you're not even going to get the job because of that OSHA record or maybe those OSHA injuries or accidents that you've had. So, but remember, safety is not an expense; it is an investment. So the consultation program side of OSHA is a great program. You want to be compliant with OSHA regulations. You want to keep your employees safe. You want them to go back home to their families. You want to eliminate any potential OSHA fines but the biggest thing is to eliminate those hazards your employees are exposed to. And our services are free. It's just amazes me that a lot of people don't know about the OSHA consultation program, but our services are free. It's your consultation. We can inspect the whole job site. We can inspect one work process. If there's a hazard, we will note it. You're required to correct it. You're not fined. There's no penalties. Everything is kept confidential. If you just need help in creating a written safety and health program, and as Jorge mentioned, if you have a Hispanic workforce, he can provide those programs. He can do training in Spanish if you just want some training. But once again, here are the ways that you can request a consultation. You can do it online. You can call us. You can email us. But safety, once again, the safety of your employees is the most important thing, and you want to eliminate those hazards so that your employees can go home. So that talks a little bit about our program and what we do. And if you have any questions, please let us know.
All right, thank you, Brian and Jorge. We're now going to begin answering the questions submitted during today's presentation. And as a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane in your attendee control panel. We had one question come in during your session. Will you come out on employee request due to employer refusal?
No, the employer is the one who has to request us to come to a job site. If an employee requests us to come, we cannot come. That is an OSHA enforcement issue.
There'll be a complaint. That will be a complaint to the OSHA enforcement. Yes.
Correct.
All right, I will wait for a few more questions to come in. That was the only question we had received. I'll just give it another minute. Any questions for Brian and Jorge on their presentation today? I will just give it a few more seconds. All right, well, thank you, Brian and Jorge, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. If you have any questions, please visit the contact page on the conference website. Thank you for joining today, and we hope to see you in our final session right after this, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Carly.
Thank you.